"You're the only one who makes me feel alive, human," whispered the alien queen. HFY Sci-Fi story. The Diplomatic Gambit. The observation deck of the UES Meridian offered a breathtaking view of Cathara Prime, the artificial moon that served as the Zelyari capital. Captain Jonah Thorne pressed his palm against the reinforced viewport, watching the geometric perfection of alien spires pierce the surface like crystal needles. 20 years as a combat medic in the Outer Rim Wars had taught him to read danger in the smallest details, and everything about this place screamed calculated precision. "Second thoughts, Captain?" Lieutenant Commander Zara Okafor's reflection appeared beside his in the glass. Her dark eyes held the same wariness he felt. "Just wondering if we're walking into a trap or a tomb," Jonah replied, adjusting the formal, diplomatic uniform that felt foreign after years in field gear. "The Zelyari haven't responded to human contact in over 50 years. Now suddenly they want to negotiate?" The briefing had been sparse. The Zelyari Collective, once the most feared military power in the galaxy, was dying. Their reproduction rates had plummeted. Their colonies were going dark, and their legendary war fleet sat motionless in space. Intelligence suggested some kind of genetic collapse, but the details remained classified beyond even Jonah's security. "Clearance, Captain Thorne, to the bridge," came the announcement. "We're receiving docking instructions." The bridge of the Meridian buzzed with nervous energy as they approached the alien station. The Zelyari structure was a marvel of engineering. A perfect sphere 20 kilometers in diameter, its surface covered in hexagonal patterns that pulsed with bioluminescent light. No windows, no external weapon ports, nothing that suggested the beings inside experienced the universe the way humans did. "Docking successful," reported Navigation Officer Marcus Vale, his voice tight with concentration. "Their tractor beam is unlike anything in our database. It's almost organic." Captain Nora Blackthorne, the Meridian's commanding officer, stood beside Jonah as they prepared to disembark. "Remember, Captain Thorne, you're not just representing humanity here. You're our best hope for understanding what's happening to them. Your medical background might be the key to preventing whatever's causing their decline from spreading to other species." The airlock cycled with an unusual harmonic resonance that made Jonah's teeth ache. The corridor beyond was pristine white, lit by the same bioluminescent patterns they'd seen on the station's exterior. The air tasted of ozone and something floral he couldn't identify. Their Zelyari escort stood nearly 8 feet tall, humanoid, but clearly alien. Its skin held a pearl-like iridescence, and its face was perfectly symmetrical, almost mathematical, in its proportions. When it spoke, its voice carried no inflection whatsoever. "I am Designate Velnara. You will follow designated paths. You will not deviate. You will not touch surfaces marked with warning patterns. The Queen consciousness awaits." The journey through the station revealed a civilization of stunning beauty and terrifying emptiness. Gardens of crystalline plants grew in perfect geometric arrangements, their faceted leaves creating rainbow patterns in the artificial light. Zelyari moved through the corridors with mechanical precision, never acknowledging each other, never displaying any emotion or curiosity about the human visitors. "It's like they're sleepwalking," Zara whispered to Jonah as they walked. The throne room, if it could be called that, was a vast spherical chamber with no visible floor or ceiling. They stood on what appeared to be solid light, while holographic displays showed star charts and data streams in 3 dimensions around them. At the center, suspended in a web of energy, was Queen Sel Thara. She was beautiful in the way that mathematical equations could be beautiful. Perfect, precise, and completely without warmth. Her skin seemed to glow from within, and her eyes were pools of liquid silver that reflected the data stream surrounding her. When those eyes fixed on Jonah, something extraordinary happened. For just a moment, her perfect composure cracked. Her breathing changed, her luminescent skin flickered, and her lips parted in what might have been surprise. "You," she said, and her voice carried something no Zelyari voice should have possessed. Wonder. The Queen's confession. The diplomatic session that followed was unlike anything in Jonah's experience. Queen Sel Thara seemed unable to focus on the formal proceedings. her silver eyes constantly drifting back to him. When she spoke of trade agreements and territorial boundaries, her voice remained flat and mechanical, but when she addressed him directly, something different emerged, a cadence that suggested depths beneath the surface. "The human delegation will be provided quarters in Sector 7, she announced to the assembled Zelyari Council. All except the medical officer. He will remain in the primary complex for additional consultation." Velnara's head tilted at a precise angle. "Queen consciousness, this deviates from standard protocol. The human's presence in the core areas could compromise. The decision is made." The Queen's interruption was sharp enough to silence the chamber. Around them, the other Zelyari exchanged glances, the first display of anything resembling emotion Jonah had witnessed from their species. Later, in quarters that were luxurious but sterile, Jonah paced before a wall of living crystal that showed the cosmos beyond. Zara had been assigned to different quarters along with the rest of the diplomatic team. For the first time since arriving, he was alone with his thoughts. The door chimed with that same harmonic resonance. "Enter," he called, expecting another Zelyari designate with instructions or restrictions. Queen Saelthara stepped through the threshold, and Jonah's breath caught. Outside the formal setting of the throne room, she seemed smaller, more fragile. The bioluminescent patterns in her skin pulsed erratically, and her perfect posture had acquired an almost human uncertainty. "Your Majesty," Jonah began, moving, to offer the traditional diplomatic greeting. "Stop." Her voice cracked on the word. "Please. When you speak my title, when you follow your protocols, I feel empty. But when you look at me, truly look at me, something awakens, something I thought lost forever." She moved closer, and Jonah could see that her luminescence was responding to his presence, growing brighter and more chaotic. "Do you know what we are, Captain Thorne? We are the hollow ones, the perfected ones. We engineered away everything that made us weak. Emotion, irrationality, the chaos of feeling. We became gods of logic and precision." "And it's killing you," Jonah said quietly. Her laugh was a sound that shouldn't have been possible from a Zelyari throat. Bitter, broken, completely human. "Yes, we are dying because we forgot how to live. Our children are born more empty than their parents. Our colonies collapse because no one cares enough to maintain them. Our fleets drift because there is no passion to drive them home." She stepped closer still, close enough that Jonah could feel the heat radiating from her skin. "But you, when I look at you, I remember dreams. I remember the taste of curiosity, the weight of hope, the sharp edge of fear. How is this possible?" Jonah's medical training kicked in, his mind racing through possibilities. Could it be some kind of genetic compatibility? Pheromone interaction, or maybe... "Stop analyzing." Her hands reached out, hovering just above his chest without quite touching. "For once in my existence, I want to feel without understanding." When you arrived, something in our genetic archives began to resonate. Ancient files locked away for millennia started to unlock themselves. The implications hit Jonah like a physical blow. "Your people have been to Earth." More than that, Saelthara's eyes seemed to burn with silver fire. "Long ago, before we became what we are now, we were explorers. We found a young world, primitive but promising. We were different then. We could feel wonder, love, loss. We saw potential in that world's evolving species. You seeded Earth. We shared our genetic template with your ancestors, hoping that someday evolution would give us back what we were losing. We never imagined it would take so long or that we would fall so far." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You are our children, Captain Thorne, and you are our salvation." The room fell silent except for the subtle humming of the station's systems. Jonah could hear his own heartbeat, could feel the weight of impossible responsibility settling on his shoulders. "What do you need from me?" he asked. "Everything," she replied, and for the first time since he'd met her, Queen Saelthara smiled. "You're the only one who makes me feel alive, human." The Awakening Crisis. 3 days after Saelthera's revelation, the changes in her were undeniable. She moved with less perfect precision. Her luminescent skin flickered with patterns that seemed almost random and most disturbing to her subjects. She had begun to laugh. Jonah found her in the station's central archive, surrounded by holographic displays showing genetic sequences and evolutionary trees. The space was vast and cathedral-like, with data streams flowing like ribbons of light through the air. She stood in the center of it all, her hand pressed against a glowing console, tears streaming down her face. "I remember now," she said without turning around. "I remember what it felt like to love something so much that losing it could destroy you. We had that once, my people. We had passion and art and the beautiful madness of hope." "Saelthara," Jonah began, but she whirled to face him, her eyes blazing with an intensity that made him step backward. "Do you see what you've done to me?" she demanded, but her voice carried wonder rather than accusation. "I'm becoming something new, something dangerous. My council meets in secret now, plotting against me. Half of them want to dissect you to understand how you've infected me with emotion. The other half want to kill you to stop the contagion from spreading." As if summoned by her words, the archive's doors dilated to admit Velnara and a squad of Zelyari guards. Their movements were coordinated with mechanical precision, but Jonah could see something else in their perfect formations: fear. "Queen consciousness," Velnara announced. "By order of the High Council, you are to be separated from the human contamination source until a proper cleansing protocol can be implemented." Saelthera's laugh was sharp and bitter. "Contamination? Is that what you call this?" She gestured to the holographic displays around them. "I've unlocked genetic memories that go back 10,000 years, Velnara. I've seen what we were before we lobotomized ourselves in the name of perfection." "You have been compromised," Velnara replied. But there was something wrong with its voice, a slight tremor that suggested even the logical Zelyari could experience uncertainty. "The human's influence is spreading beyond acceptable parameters. Other units are beginning to exhibit anomalous behaviors." It was true. During his 3 days on the station, Jonah had noticed subtle changes in the Zelyari he encountered. A scientist in the medical wing had asked him an unnecessary question, one born of curiosity rather than protocol. A maintenance worker had paused to study a piece of art in a corridor, something that should have been irrelevant to its assigned function. "Stand down, Velnara," Saelthara commanded, but her designate's weapon remained trained on Jonah. "I cannot comply, Queen Consciousness. The contamination must be contained." The next few seconds unfolded with deadly precision. Jonah, drawing on decades of combat experience, threw himself sideways as Velnara's energy weapon discharged. The beam scored the wall where he'd been standing, filling the air with the acrid smell of vaporized metal. But it was Saelthera's reaction that truly shocked everyone in the room. With a sound that was pure rage, an emotion no Zelyari should have been capable of, she struck her designate with a blast of bioenergy from her own hands. Velnara crumpled, its perfect form spasming as its neural pathways overloaded. "You shot at him," she snarled at the remaining guards, her voice carrying harmonics that made the air itself vibrate. "You dared to threaten the one who gave me back my soul." The guards retreated in perfect formation, but Jonah could see the cracks forming in their absolute discipline. One of them looked back over its shoulder, an unnecessary action that suggested the beginning of genuine curiosity. "This is getting out of hand," Jonah said, moving to check Velnara's vital signs. The Zelyari was alive, but unconscious, its skin patterns flickering weakly. "No," Saelthara replied, her voice now carrying a note of fierce determination. "This is exactly what needs to happen, but not here, not like this. My people aren't ready for forced evolution. The shock could kill them." She turned to face the central console, her hands dancing over controls that seemed to respond to her thoughts as much as her touch. "There's another way. The consciousness core on Zelyar Prime, the original homeworld. It's where we stored our genetic memories when we began the Great Perfection. If I could reach it, if I could unlock those memories and broadcast them throughout our network, your council will never let you leave," Jonah pointed out, Her smile was dangerous and beautiful. Then we'll have to make sure they don't have a choice. Alarms began sounding throughout the station, and the lights shifted to an urgent blue spectrum. Through the archive's walls, Jonah could see Zelyari moving with purpose through the corridors, their perfect coordination beginning to show signs of confusion and doubt. "The awakening has begun," Saelthera whispered, her hand finding his. "And I cannot do this alone." Part 4. Flight to the core. The escape from Cathara Prime was chaos disguised as precision. Saelthera had accessed the station's central systems, creating cascading failures that looked accidental, but provided exactly the distraction they needed. Emergency protocols activated throughout the facility, sealing sections and rerouting traffic in patterns that seemed random, but actually cleared their path to the docking bays. "Your people are going to figure out what you've done," Jonah said, as they moved through corridors filled with confused Zelyari attempting to manage the crisis. "Some already have," she replied, her bioluminescent patterns now cycling through colors he'd never seen before, deep purples and golds that spoke of emotions the Zelyari had no names for. "But the beautiful thing about feeling, Captain Thorne, is that it spreads. Every Zelyari who experiences even a moment of genuine emotion becomes a carrier for the awakening." They reached the docking bay where the Meridian waited, but it wasn't alone. 3 Zelyari interceptors hung in space nearby, their sleek forms radiating deadly intent. Captain Blackthorn's voice crackled over the comm system. "Jonah, we've got problems. The Zelyari fleet is powering weapons. Whatever you did over there, it's got them spooked. Zara and the diplomatic team are aboard, but we need to move now." "Negative," Jonah replied, making a decision that surprised even him. "We are not returning to human space. Plot a course for Zelyar Prime." "Are you insane?" Blackthorn's voice was sharp with disbelief. "That's the heart of their territory. We'll be vaporized before we clear the system." Saelthera moved to the communications console, her movements now fluid rather than mechanically precise. "Captain Blackthorn, this is Queen Saelthera. I am commandeering your vessel in the name of species survival, yours and mine." The channel fell silent for a moment before Blackthorn responded. "Your Majesty, with respect, the Meridian is a diplomatic vessel, not a warship. We can't fight our way through your fleet." "We won't need to fight," Saelthera said, her voice carrying newfound confidence. "I am still Queen Consciousness of the Zelyari Collective. My override codes are absolute, for now." What followed was a tense journey through Zelyari space, with the Meridian flying under the Queen's authority while her own council attempted to countermand her orders. The interceptors followed at a distance, held back by protocols that hadn't yet been rewritten to account for a queen who could feel rebellion. In the ship's medical bay, Jonah worked to understand the biological changes occurring in Saelthara. Her cellular structure was in flux, ancient genetic sequences activating and rewriting themselves in real time. It should have been fatal, but instead she seemed to grow stronger with each passing hour. "The human genome contains templates we lost millennia ago," she explained as he took readings from her luminescent skin. "Your emotional capacity, your creativity, your ability to hope against logic, these were gifts we gave your ancestors, encoded in your DNA. Now being near you is triggering a reverse transcription. I'm becoming what my people were before the Great Perfection." Lieutenant Commander Okafor entered the medical bay, her expression grim. "We're getting reports from across Zelyari space. Ships going dark, colonies falling silent, and in some cases—" She paused, glancing at Saelthera uncertainly. "In some cases?" the Queen prompted. "Zelyari are abandoning their posts, just walking away from their duties and disappearing into the wilderness of their worlds. The few communication intercepts we've managed to decode suggest they're seeking something called the old ways." Saelthara closed her eyes, and for a moment, her skin blazed with golden light. "It's working. The awakening is spreading faster than I dared hope. But it's also more dangerous than I anticipated. My people are experiencing emotions for the first time in centuries, with no framework to understand or control them. Some will go mad. Others will retreat so far into feeling that they lose all capacity for rational thought. That's why we need To reach the consciousness core, Jonah said, understanding dawning. It's not just about unlocking memories. You need to provide guidance. A roadmap for balanced emotional development. Exactly. She opened her eyes and Jonah saw something that made his breath catch. Love. Dangerous, overwhelming, completely unguarded love. And I need you there with me. The core will require a genetic key, someone who carries the original template. Without you, I cannot access the deepest archives. The ship shuddered as they dropped out of hyperspace, and through the viewports Xellier Prime came into view. It was a world of impossible beauty, crystalline cities that sang. The ship shuddered as they dropped out of hyperspace, and through the viewports, Xellier Prime came into view. It was a world of impossible beauty, crystalline cities that sang with harmonic resonance, vast geometric gardens that stretched across continents, and at the planet's heart, a spire of living light that reached into the upper atmosphere. The consciousness core, Salthara whispered, where it all began, and where it will end one way or another. Warning alarms sounded throughout the ship as massive Xelliari dreadnoughts emerged from behind the planet's twin moons, their weapons already charging for the kill. Part 5. The Choice of Worlds. The bridge of the Meridian became a symphony of controlled chaos as Captain Blackthorn barked orders and her crew worked to keep them alive. The Xelliari dreadnoughts, each one the size of a small city, hung in space like geometric storms, their weapon arrays painting the human ship with targeting lasers that turned the stars red. Incoming transmission, reported communications. Officer Torres, his voice tight with stress. It's from the lead dreadnought. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a Xelliari that Jonah had never seen before. This one was different from the others. Older, its skin bearing patterns of deep blue and silver that spoke of age and authority. When it spoke, its voice carried the weight of absolute command. I am Prime Designate Keth Varos, voice of the True Council. You harbor a corrupted queen consciousness and the source of contamination. Surrender both and your vessel will be permitted to withdraw from our space. Salthara stepped forward, her own presence causing the screen to shimmer with interference. Stand down, Keth Varos, I am still your queen. You are chaos incarnate, the Prime Designate replied. But Jonah noticed something crucial, a slight hesitation in its voice, a micro-expression that suggested even this ancient Xelliari was not entirely immune to the spreading awakening. The contamination you carry threatens the very existence of our species. We will not permit you to reach the core. Then you will destroy us all, Salthara said quietly. Because without the core, the awakening will consume our people. They're experiencing emotions without context, feeling without understanding. How many have already died from the shock of their first true fear? How many more will succumb to uncontrolled love or rage? The channel fell silent, and in that silence, Jonah made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. There's another way, he announced, stepping into view of the transmission. I'll surrender myself to you willingly, but only if you guarantee safe passage for the Queen to reach the core. Jonah, no, Salthara whirled to face him, her eyes blazing with desperate emotion. Without you, I cannot access the deepest archives. The genetic key requires your living presence. Then we find another solution. He reached out, taking her luminescent hands in his own human ones. You said it yourself. I'm just the trigger. The real template is already spreading through your people. Maybe what they need isn't ancient wisdom, but the courage to write their own emotional future. The Meridian shuddered as the dreadnoughts moved closer, their massive forms blotting out the stars. On the surface of Xellier Prime below, Jonah could see lights beginning to flicker in new patterns. Chaotic, beautiful, emotional patterns that spoke of a civilization in the midst of revolutionary change. Captain Thorne, Keth Varos's voice cut through their conversation. Your proposal is acceptable, but know that you will be studied, dissected, and ultimately destroyed in the service of our species' survival. I understand, Jonah replied, then turned back to Salthara. But before I go, I need you to promise me something. Don't try to control this awakening. Don't try to perfect it or manage it into some new form of logical order. Let your people feel messily, Love dangerously, hope foolishly. That's what makes us human, and it's what will make you truly alive. Tears, impossible, beautiful tears, streamed down her face as she nodded. I promise. But I also promise that this is not goodbye. I will find a way to save you, even if it takes centuries. The transport to the dreadnought was conducted with mechanical precision, but Jonah could see the cracks forming in that precision. Zeliari crew members moved with subtle variations in their patterns, and he caught glimpses of wonder in their silver eyes as they watched him pass. From the detention chamber aboard the dreadnought, Jonah watched through a viewport as the meridian descended toward Zelyar Prime. Saelthara had been right about one thing. Her royal code still carried authority, at least enough to gain her access to the planet's surface. Hours passed, marked by the subtle changes in the ship around him. The perfect harmonics of Zelyari architecture began to waver, becoming something more complex and beautiful. He could hear voices in the corridors, actual conversations rather than status reports, questions asked out of curiosity rather than protocol. Then, like a second sunrise, light erupted from the planet's surface. The consciousness core had awakened, and with it, 10,000 years of suppressed memory flooded back into the Zelyari collective consciousness. Jonah felt it too, a wave of shared experience that spoke of love and loss, of art and music, of the terrible, beautiful chaos of feeling. The dreadnought shuddered, not from external force but from the emotional awakening of its crew. Through his chamber's communication system, Jonah could hear Keth Vera struggling to maintain order as its subordinates began to question, to wonder, to feel. "What have you done to us?" The Prime Designate's voice crackled over the comm, but the question carried wonder rather than accusation. "We gave you back your souls," Jonah replied. The chamber door dilated, and Saelthara stepped through, her form now radiant with new purpose. Behind her came Keth Varos, its ancient features transformed by the light of genuine emotion. "The awakening is complete," she announced, her voice carrying harmonics that spoke of joy and sorrow intertwined. "My people remember what they were, and they choose what they will become. Not perfect, not logical, but gloriously, chaotically alive." She reached for Jonah's hand, and in her touch he felt the future. Messy, uncertain, but full of infinite possibility. "You kept your promise," he said. "Always," she replied. "You're the only one who makes me feel alive, human, and now you've taught an entire species how to live." Outside the viewport, Zelyar Prime blazed with new light as a civilization learned to dream again.